My name is Eshban, and I'm very interested in conversations around development on the continent. And when I'm not doing that, I'm waking up late and eating life with a big spoon.
Hi, my name is Maria and Eshban. I like money, I like wine, I like food, and I'm passionate about human rights.
Welcome to Question That.
Good morning. Welcome to Kweshunga. My name is Penelope Sanyu. I am your host, and I am delighted to usher you into this space of playfulness where we inspire, we live, and we play. This week, we are delighted to be talking about the art of moderating panels. Yep, you got that. We are talking about panels and everything to do with panels. And I am so honored to host my very good friends, my special people who are dear to my heart, Maria and Eshban. They are skilled in the art of moderating panels, and they'll be telling us today how we can get into that space and how we can excel at working and being in that space. So join us this week. Let's Kweshunga. Welcome Eshban and Maria to Kweshunga.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so glad that you're here. Please tell us about yourselves. I just said Eshban and Maria, and the world is wondering, who are these cool people who have just happened to Kweshunga? So who are you? What do you do? I know you moderate, but what do you do in life other than moderating? And how did you get into this moderating space? What is moderating anyway? Because people may not even know. If you can just tell us what that is. Yeah, we'll start with Eshban.
All right. So what I do is that I work with a human rights and development organization, and I was very interested in emerging conversations on development, what influences Uganda, what influences the continent, and that's quite a spectrum of issues that allow individuals to discuss everything and everything. So it's exciting in a sense that even without being an expert on an issue, it allows you to be part of a conversation. It allows you to learn. It also allows you to shape narratives and to influence how people perceive issues in development.
Interesting. Isn't it amazing how all the people who ask questions every day and they're oppressing you on panels are now being oppressed by me? I need an award. Maria.
First of all, Eshban has said these things so nicely. I don't know how to say it, but my name is Maria Alesi. I do, like Eshban, I work within the human rights space. And what is moderating? For me, moderating is just the ability to help people bring their ideas together, whether they agree or they do not agree. So it's just the art of keeping things going, of keeping conversation going, of directing conversation. And how I got into that space, interestingly, is that in a casual conversation with my old friend here, he once asked me how come I've never tried to moderate discussions. And I guess for me, moderating conversations is like the second part of the dream that didn't come true. I wanted to be a TV star.
Maria, how come you've never shared this dream?
So growing up, I grew up listening to BBC. My mom used to listen to BBC all the time. So I really wanted to be a radio presenter. And I still hope that one day I'll get an opportunity to host my own political talk show. But yes, that's really what propelled me into that space.
Interesting. So talking about keeping things together, because you said keeping things together, keeping conversations going. How are you able to do that? Because first of all, people struggle with multitasking. I don't know how you listen and think quickly and also pay attention to, because you're just two and I'm struggling. So imagine you're like five people. They're like five people. You're listening to each of them. You're listening to the room because you're also reading the room. And you're taking notes. You're remembering themes. How do you do all that at a go?
Okay, so one, it's first of all, everyone has their way they do it, right? So it's not to try to be Nancy Kachungira or to be Rukshana. Like it's find yourself, right? So like you, I struggle to pay attention, and when there are many things, I can't even drive and talk. Like so I have to choose one answer in the process, right?
Because it feels like something is stopping, and I need to I need to focus.
Exactly. So moderating comes with lots of preparation. So it's always nice if you're doing it for someone else, or if like now for Questionga you've sat down and you know exactly where you want this conversation to go, so you have an idea of the kind of questions that you're going to ask. Of course, panelists will say something that you want to build on within that conversation, so you also leave space for that. But for me, it's really making sure you do your homework, and you must always have like 3 to 4 questions that you must ask in the conversation. But also it's to prepare. Like I do the mirror talks. Like I'm going to moderate this panel. How am I going to introduce it? How am I going to raise this question? Who are these people? Sometimes it's good to do a research on the panelists if you have access to their names. Then that makes it easier for the conversation. But for me, my secret weapon is I bring myself. Like I'm a fun-loving, I like to laugh, I'm chill. So I bring the conversation. It doesn't matter how serious it is. So I find a way to, for example, tell people every time that my name is Maria, I come from Maracha. Like that breaks the ice even for me. So that's,
and I think that helps, because sometimes even the people that are on the panel that you're interviewing are already tensed up.
Exactly.
Like I'm sitting before all these people, oh my God, so they are panicking. So I guess bringing yourself helps to ease the tension. Eshban, let's talk about preparation, because Maria mentioned preparation. How do you prepare? How do you prepare mentally, physically? Because I mean, you can have all these things in your mind and your body gives up on you. And it says that we are not going to stand for this panel. You need to sit, and maybe it's a standing moderating gig or something. How do you prepare? How do you get yourself in a space where you're able to listen and also keep the conversation going?
Well, for me, one of the things that I have to do, one of the things that I need clarity on is what's the purpose of the conversation to start with. So there are conversations, it might be a conversation for which the purpose is to advance thought leadership, to extend ideas to a broader audience, or is it a high-stakes conversation? And those two things are not the same thing. Sometimes you're just sharing information, sometimes you're moderating a very serious high-stake conversation, so that all that comes into the preparation process. Who is on the panel, who is speaking, what's their level of expertise, who is in the room, is the audience, will part of the audience be an extended audience, say on the internet? So who are you communicating to? I think that for me, preparation really requires clarity on all those things. And also just a constant reminder that when you're moderating a panel, you're really serving the audience. So it's important to know the audience's expectations and how much they already know about the subject. Because when you're a moderator, really your job is you're not the sage on the stage. You're not there for your own views. There's a wider audience, and I know that sometimes it's really tempting when you're talking to a person or moderating a panel, sometimes you're
have your own views,
insert yourself in that conversation. So it's always like, listen, this is not about you, come back here, it's about the audience. So
that's a lot of discipline. That's a lot of discipline.
No, just to piggyback on like what Eshban has said, right? It's the part of opinions. I think sometimes we expect like moderators to like come with a blank slate. Like I've moderated panels before, I've been like, you know what, like this thought of yours is problematic, and I won't allow you to share it because it's a thought that's really harmful to the greater good of humanity. And I've stopped the person right in there. So, okay, sometimes really my eyes will tell you that you're rubbish, but so my face. But also on the preparation thing, it's so preparing, like you say, preparing the mind is easy, like reading, finding statistics, what even creating that beginning speech. But it's simple things like, you really need to plan your bathroom break, right? Like try to go to the bathroom before the panel starts. Because there's nothing like you're trying to read a question, you're holding your bladder. It's also like wearing comfortable clothes, right? If it's a standing panel, what kind of shoes are you going to wear, especially like for the women? Is your shoe comfortable enough? Also, if it's
or you're in a short skirt and then it's a high stool.
Like how do you work around that, right? So it's important also to prepare, because these things have an effect on you, right? That if you feel like your bra strap is dropping, you're
like, I can pick it.
like,
yeah.
yeah. So preparing is in, but also for me, it's trying. I'm always in a panic. Like there's no panel I've moderated where I feel like I got this. You guys, I'm the boss. Like,
I was actually going to ask about that. I was going to ask about that because sometimes I feel like I'm about myself. Like, even before giving a speech, ordinarily.
Yes.
So the other day, I was watching someone and they were saying, "No, I wish I didn't have to hold a mic because it really shows that I am shaking." How do you guys do this?
Nerves.
They will always be there. I think
Is there a time where you ever grow to a place where the nerves don't come? Is there any such thing? Because you've moderated a couple of panels. And so whether it's my first time or 10th time, is the experience different?
I mean, not for me. I think that someday when I hack how to get rid of the nerves, I might come back and share. Yeah, but what I find really helpful is if you feel prepared. Sometimes the nerves come because you might not feel adequate. But if you feel prepared, if you've done everything that you can to prepare for that conversation, or in some cases you've spoken to some of the panelists, so there's a bit of a shared sense of what you're going to discuss, how it's going to go, and you're sure that the panelists feel safe. I think that predictability, for me on panels, kind of helps with the nerves.
So how do you, so the panel is going well, you have dealt with your nerves, you're happy, you're asking good questions, and people start fighting. Not physically, but there's clearly your panel is not agreeing.
That's not a bad thing. I think
how do you keep the peace? Or how do you redirect the conversation to get what, because there's disagreement that's healthy. There's disagreement that's taking away from the purpose for which you're moderating.
There's someone is about to throw a shoe.
Right? And you're there thinking you're adults, control yourselves. How does that work? Or have you even experienced anything like that?
For me, one of the worst things that can happen on a panel is when I get the sense that there's superficial agreement. That everybody is,
just saying yes.
Yeah, everybody is just saying yes. I think that I get bored, and because as a moderator, you're there for the audience, I assume that, okay, the audience must be bored now. So it's always important, I think, for me to have some bit of conflict. I mean, not to that, not
to the point of show, guys.
Yeah.
So for me, in relation to that, right, I think when I just started out, it was really like an awkward moment because I was young, and you're moderating a panel with like people that you admire or people that are like really, really important, and you don't know how to deal with the awkward. But now I go like, this is a panel, this is my panel, and I'm going to call you all back to order. Of course, I haven't been in a situation like there was one where the moderator, I think it was a video from some Middle Eastern country, I think Pakistan or something, where the moderator walked up to the other person and they just started to argue. I was like, this is me at the next panel. But so I think it's just with some things come with more experience. Like I'm sure that for the things that I struggle with, like Nancy Kaschungira might be like just going through them like this, and she knows how to deal with them. So it's also about, like I said, I do a lot of watching, right? Because there are a lot of people that I wanted to be like at some point, and they also like watching their videos and how they moderate conversations, how they bring ideas together really helped me on the journey, because I have not yet been to a moderating school. I've not yet heard about a moderating school. And so also like watching conversations where there's been like a big argument and people are look like it's really, really tense, has also helped. Like how did this person like just like put an end to this? How do we move on to the next part of the conversation? But it's also, sometimes it's not about just the panelists like having a conflict, right? It's also difficult. The panelists are just difficult. Either the person is not answering your questions, or the person doesn't know why they're on the panel, or the person just won't freaking listen to you. Like that's just it, right? I was on a panel where this man, I asked him like 2 questions, and I swear to God, I don't know where these answers came from. There's when someone gives an answer and it's off. Yes. And then there's someone who is like going to Pakwach when we're trying to go to Ginger.
And you have to check again.
So what I did is, what really, really helped me was that there were 5 panelists. I really never came back to him. I dealt with the other people who like were contributing the conversation, because he kept on stalling the conversation and leaving it in a space where you can't even pick up. So I really just ran away from him, and then I leave that space for people from the audience who are asking questions, because if the person is, for example, in Uganda, a government official, you definitely know that 3 out of 4 of the questions are going to come to this person. Yes. So you also allow to ride on what your audience, like audiences are predictable, especially because like I moderate within the same spaces, so I know what to expect from audiences in that process.
Speaking of problematic panelists, and I'm asking this for anyone out there who wants to organize an event and is thinking of which panel do I put together, what people do I invite. Do you think that it's important? Because one of the things I struggle with is sometimes I am watching or listening to a panel and it feels like some people are just called the night before and told you're going to be on this interview, just show up. Or even when they've prepared, they have the head knowledge, they're just not syncing with everybody else on the panel. What would you advise people that choose the people to be on the panel? What do you look out for? Because you're moderators and you know that if I had to put a gender and sexuality panel together, these are the kinds of people I'm looking for. I'm not just going to pick someone randomly off the street just because they have a PhD in sexuality and put them on the panel.
Well, I mean, what's true is that some people do get added to panels last minute. So so that happens.
Someone cancels.
Yeah, some people cancel their appearance on a panel last minute, and you have to deal with that, or you have to improvise with that. But usually it falls more on the organizers than the panelists. But I've seen it several times. But what I would like to say about composition of panels is that I think that the individuals or the organizations that plan these conversations need to constantly be aware that once you put someone on a panel, there's a certain power you've given them. You put a microphone in their face and you're allowing them to articulate their ideas. So it's important to think about what's going to be the effect of giving a microphone to this idea. I mean, while we support free speech, I think that also has to be done responsibly. So diversity is now quite important on panels. There's now a word, manos, which was non-existent, I think, 10 years ago. So
you're conscious constantly about, the composition.
The composition of the panels, but not just the composition, but also the quality of ideas. That's why it's important when you're choosing someone to be on a panel, you have some sense of what it is that they are going to say. And that's why for me, it's also important to try and talk to a panelist before you so that we have some expectations on how it's going to go. What are your views on this? It also guides with the questions to ask.
Does character help?
Yes.
Because there are some people whose characters just, someone will even show up and they saw the program, but they're like, if Maria is on that panel, I'm not showing up.
Yes, I do know that if I was asked to moderate a panel with a few people, I wouldn't moderate it. Like, there are certain specific people that I'm like, this is a no-no, like never, ever, like I would never moderate that panel. But also in terms of like, so there are characters that are like the people that you would never moderate a panel for whatever different reason. But also personality is very important because one of the things about conversations is the ability for people to ease up and bring humor into the discussion, to simplify the conversation and things like that. Because a lot of times we have conversations with experts. And so experts come into these conversations and use all these big terms, even you as a panelist. Sometimes as a moderator, you're like,
like dictionary,
but I can't share my clan by trying to read everything here, right? And so it's personality comes very important. So when you're picking your panelists, it's also it's nice to like just Google a little bit, and maybe if someone has a video and watch them and see the way they speak, see the way they present themselves, it helps. Of course, the challenge with that is that for people who are not on online spaces or people who don't have videos out there, they might be excluded because I don't have clear information on that. But also technique is very important. I know sometimes we're deeply obsessed with 1, 2, 3, 4 people sit together, let's talk about it, and things like that. So if, for example, an institution knows that this person is really, really brilliant, but when they do a PowerPoint presentation, all of us are going to go to sleep. Yes. you can make it a conversation. So you can also talk to the moderator about how to do that. Or if you feel like the panel is not, like, there are people who are not very, or the topic in itself is not like very exciting, it's also to how then do you have a conversation with the moderator to engage the audience more in the conversation. But also, for me, the one thing that always breaks my heart about like being a moderator is when you're invited to moderate a panel and there are 7 people on the panel and there are 45 minutes for the conversation. And you're like, what do you do? That happened to me.
How much time do I give each
exactly.
person?
So what I did is I picked 2 questions. I asked the first question, it went round. I asked the second question. By the time everyone was done, the 45 minutes were done and the conversation was open. Then I created a wrap-up. So for me, it's for organizers to also think about how much time do we have? Do we need all these panelists?
Not placing value on your conversation.
Exactly, because
very limited
exactly
time.
because you're also asking me to prepare for this conversation, and so like those are a few things, because I've been privileged to be on both ends, right? To be able to be the moderator and then the person finding the panelists. But it's also important to just to rest about certain things, right? Sometimes I think we're trying to control every single thing about the conversation, and so you're moderating a discussion and someone is passing you a question that you've not asked this kind of question, and yet you might think that it's time for us to discuss Uganda's future when the people in the room don't even have a context of Uganda now, and you can't discuss Uganda now. You can't discuss the future if you don't have an understanding of Uganda now.
Interesting. So Eshban, what has been the most interesting panel you have moderated and why? What happened? Maria is going to answer the craziest she has moderated, and what happened?
Why don't we switch?
Why don't you ask another question right now? We are the panelists who are moving on to our own.
You're the problematic panelist right now. Please share either the craziest or the most interesting panel you have moderated, and what stood out for you with that panel. What lessons were there?
I was actually joking with Maria earlier that this happens a lot on panels when the moderator asks one question and the
panelist wants to answer
a different one. I think that for me, one of the most delicate moments I've had moderating conversations and on panels was once when I was moderating a conversation on violence and refugees, and one of the panelists, while telling a story, broke down and started to cry. So it was very delicate because I had a conversation with the panelists prior, so I had an idea of what the story was. But I didn't want to be insensitive, but I also thought that it was important for the audience to hear that story. So it was quite delicate in the sense that when the panelists started to cry, I had to move on. I said, it's fine, just take all the time you need. We're going to move on to the other panelists, but if it's fine, I'll keep checking with you and I would like to come back to you. So we did that back and forth where the story would get told, would move on to the other panelists, but it wasn't finished. So it was very delicate for me, and I think one of the most delicate panel moments I have ever had.
Interesting. I was thinking Eshban got up and went and hugged the person and said,
"You don't even try, Fred. You don't even try. You didn't even
whispered some things, but that was a smart way to handle it. Because I don't know. Sometimes I think we freeze when we don't expect certain reactions from people, and then there they are. If you guys started crying right now, I don't know what I would do, but moving to Maria.
Craziest panel. First of all, I feel like I've moderated so many, I can't even remember some of them.
That's chaotic.
no, not that they are chaotic, but I've not had one where I've gone like, what's happening? But I've had a few where one of the panelists won't stop talking, and I have to find a brilliant way to say shut up.
A very honorable
way to say shut up. But I think
switch off mic.
Yes, I think for me one of the most exciting panels I moderated was one where we're having a conversation on feminism and the discussion around like structural issues, right? Just being on the panel, and at some point, one of the panelists was about to be eaten by everybody, including the audience. And in that moment, I felt like I didn't need to intervene, because the room was telling the person on the panel that, hey,
you need to stop.
what you're saying is rubbish, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was really, really exciting to know that the bigger portion of the audience knew that what this person was saying was problematic, and I didn't have to go through the process of explaining these views and stuff like that. So and then the other one was when I had an opportunity to moderate a panel with Honorable Robert Chagulanyi. There's a photo of me where I looked like I was willing to surrender it all, right?
It was almost
You're in the presence of...
It was almost as if she had been sent to interview her mentor. That's what it looked like. I remember that conversation.
So you were starstruck.
Yeah, I was
And
starstruck. I'm pretending not to be starstruck, but my face will never let me win. Never. Yeah, so it was a really nice. It was a really nice. I think that day was Robert Chagulanyi. There's an MP whose name I can't remember, and then Andrew Karamaji was also on that panel. Yes.
Interesting people. That must have been a lovely conversation. So as we finish this Kweshunga session, there are young women and young men and young people, even old people out there who look at you guys and they're like, oh my God, I want to be able to talk like Eshban, how composed he is. How do they ask such intelligent questions? How do they, people who want to get into the moderating space, what things would you say to these people?
First of all, it's a big mistake to look up to me.
I agree entirely.
What are you saying?
It is.
Please look up to him. He's really a good man.
But I think that there are many rules or there are many useful insights to moderating panels that we cannot exhaust in this conversation. But just to highlight a few, is to say that, when you're moderating a panel, you're there to serve the audience. And it's important to resist the temptation to have the conversation that you want to have. Just constantly think that there's a wider audience in this conversation, and it's important that they get value out of it. So that pertains to the audience. The other is to the panel itself. I think that for me, it's important that no one walks away, that none of the panelists walks away feeling bad or feeling disparaged, regardless of their views. Because you're facilitating a conversation, not cross-examining or putting somebody on trial. That's not really your job. Exactly, that's not really your job as a moderator. So for me, that's quite important, that everybody on the panel feels heard, and that they feel that they articulated everything that they wanted to share.
First and foremost, I'm going to disagree with Eshban, right? Like I don't want to moderate a panel being responsible for feelings. But yes, it's just about making sure
disagreement is
healthy, so without just making sure everyone has enough time and their things are said and they're not interrupted unnecessarily. Yes. I don't know what I'll do about how you feel about the rest of it, but for anyone who's trying to start out in the moderating space, one, just watch a lot of talk shows. It goes a long way. It really does. It's like listening to music. Yes, not just comedy, right? It's like listening to music and singing along. It helps to boost your singing. But also it's just try it out when you're having conversations with your friends. That for once, when there's a conversation going on, don't be the person who's sharing a thought. Like when someone shares a thought, ask them a question, maybe to expound on that particular thought. They won't know that you're practicing your moderation on them, right? But it helps you learn to loop ideas together, and also to just learn to listen, like hear what people have said. If something is not clear, saying things like, what did you mean exactly when you said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things? And I think for me, if you're able to be in a conversation, you're able to moderate a discussion. Sometimes it's made to look really complex because people come in suits and ties and what, and we have more of English. But it's just as simple as that. But also read and read, because like you never know what's going to be important information. You never know how something you read 2 weeks ago will be relevant in a panel discussion, because if you grow yourself intellectually, it makes preparation processes for the other panels much easier. I do know that there are panels that I sit on, there are panels that I might moderate today where I don't have to spend 3 days preparing for it, because it's knowledge that in that field I'm knowledgeable, and I know the kind of questions to ask around that. So it's watch the talk shows as many as you can. Practice, stand in front of the mirror and say, if I was moderating a discussion with so and so, what would I ask them? How would I say what I'm saying? For me it's really just that.
Can I also add that
Please.
I think that for me it's always important to guard against the temptation to fall into political theater. Because sometimes you find a panelist who can easily put you in that conversation where if you badger them with questions, you create political theater, and you'll have a video and you'll have several views or 1,000
make
views.
memes of you. We'll be happy to do that.
And it's I think that as a moderator, it's always important to guard against that. That's why it's, for me, I have to ask, why are we having this conversation? What's the purpose of it? Who's the audience?
Nice. And Eshban sometime asked me to create a space where we can grow ourselves, and I think that that's an easy thing for people to do out there. Find your people who are in your corner, who won't laugh at you, or who will laugh, and it's
yes, like they're laughing, but we love you, but we
are
laughing
at you, but they are still helping you get on the right track. And I think for me that's practice. That before I can go out there and embarrass the entire clan and generation
then we have to
with a keynote that's not nicely written and phrased, can I call Eshban, Maria, maybe Isabella, somebody, and read it to them and present it to them, and they say, no, your intonation here, you need to change ABCD, and that could work. We are still working on that space. It has not happened, but we tried. We do that for ourselves. We have not done that for other people. But thank you guys for being on Kweshunga this week. I am so glad that we had this conversation, because there are so many people that wrote to us as Kweshunga and said, panels, how do we get into a conversation on panels? And I'm glad that I had you, my favorite people, to have this conversation with. So if you're out there and you're watching or listening and this has been helpful for you, you can also write to us. We can place you with people that can help you grow your moderating skills. So see you next time. Thank you for questioning with us. Bye-bye.